This is another edition of Conversations with SDA, and it's a platform where I bring everyday people that are doing big stuff in their own space, whether in career, business, finance, anything that helps you as a listener to move from survival to stability and financial freedom. So everything, all the conversations will still revolve around money, how to make, manage, multiply money, and how to advance in your own career. Today, I have my friend, Florence. I like to call her Flo. Flo, she lives in Canada, yeah, and she's a PhD student, doing fantastically well for herself. So let me allow you introduce yourself to our audience. Flo, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Shay. Thanks for having me. It's been a long time we've been trying to do stuff together, but I'm glad that we finally get a chance. So my name is Florence. You can call me Flo, whatever you want, but I'm Florence. I'm a PhD student in environmental sustainability. I moved to Canada for my PhD, and I am in my second year now, preparing for my qualifying exam. I have a background working in the intersection of private and public sector. Academically, I have an economics background. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, so starting from where you start, what led to your decision to wanting to pursue a PhD?
Thanks. So PhD is something that if you meet anyone who has known me since undergrad, this wouldn't surprise them. Apparently, people see me as, that school book girl. But why I decided to really do a PhD was the value that I felt it would bring to me. I have worked with different governments, worked in industry as well, in consulting. And I realized that there's a value that PhD adds, that rigor of knowledge, being able to contribute to knowledge, that doing a PhD would give me an advantage for. And also being young and being in environments where most people I work with are way older or mostly male dominated spaces, I felt that with a PhD it will accelerate my career trajectory. What I will do in PhD will probably take me about 15 years or maybe 10, 15 years to reach. And lastly, I will say that the kind of job profiles or the kind of environments that I see myself, there's value for a PhD. So I wanted to position myself for that. And I also realized that there are certain rooms that for you to enter, you don't have to, but having a certain background or exposure would give you access to certain rooms. I want to be in those rooms. I want to equip myself to be in those rooms and to be able to stay in those rooms and to contribute to knowledge, to contribute to things that are happening around us. I'm happy to talk more about why I chose what I'm doing, if that's of interest as well.
Yeah, so I would first off, why Canada? Why not the UK? Why not Australia? Why not other parts of the world? Why not the US? Why Canada? And why did you choose the current field?
So I have schooled in the US, I have schooled in China, I have schooled in Europe, in Brazil. I wanted Canada because it was different and also it was cheaper for me to be in Canada as opposed to doing my PhD in the US. Also, having the opportunity of the flexible migration policies in Canada as well was an advantage, I would say, but it wasn't primarily that.
What do you mean by the flexibility of migration, even though that is not your primary focus, right? For the benefit of our listeners, don't forget that the audience is such that there will be some people that the moment they heard Canada, oh, okay, I want to be able to relocate to this place. I want to also study in Canada. So I want you to paint a vivid picture that will help them make that critical decision.
So Canada, because you asked about the flexibility part. So they have at least up until when I moved here, they have very flexible migration policies in terms of permanent residency, citizen the path to citizenship, which was attractive for me, but also being in an environment where I just felt it was more family friendly. It was different from the other places that I had been to. It's not necessarily that, oh, Canada is the best place to do a PhD. No, but also with my family circumstances, I thought Canada was, why not Canada?
Let's talk about the choice of your course of study now.
So I'm doing environmental sustainability. My undergraduate degree is in economics, and then I did a international business, a hybrid of an MBA and international relations. So across my work, I worked at IFAD. IFAD is a UN agency that is focused on agriculture and rural development. And I also worked with the Danish government. As some of you would know, Denmark is a forerunner in the energy transition. We're talking about the advancement in wind, 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 and majorly renewables. So for me, just there was a cross-cutting theme in agriculture. We're looking at how climate change is changing how we feed, so food insecurity, how farmers are adapting to climate change, in terms of energy access as well. So like climate change or talks around climate change, talks around decarbonization, talks around energy sustainability. How can we ensure that people have access to electricity, particularly for us in Nigeria, where population is expected to more than double in the coming years, and we still have almost 50% of our population not having access to the grid, which is significant. And so for me, I wanted to I wanted to approach the subject matter from an interdisciplinary background. And I thought, why not go and study something around environmental sustainability where I can understand better, like theoretical frameworks that guide how we think about sustainability. Also incorporating areas of law, business, and also renewable energy solutions when we talk about integration and yeah.
Okay, so just to bring this back home, because I know that, or maybe it's just me assuming that for you, it's not really so much about Japan, right? You're one of those people I've spoken to that are really passionate about coming back home to apply what they've studied. So in the space that we're in right now in Nigeria, renewables, hydrogen, and all of those energy mix is not, we're not gaining so much traction in that. We've done a lot in our oil, in our gas, in our power industry, but we're still at the infant stage where renewables and alternative sources of energy is concerned. So as a professional in that light, how do you think, if you are supposed to give a word to policymaker, how do you think we can really build that alternative source of energy?
I was talking with someone yesterday, and what we agreed was that if it's solutions, if it's what to do, like we actually have all of that. But political will and making like evidence-based policies is a major challenge. So in terms of energy mix, I find that sometimes I learn a lot more about Nigeria when I step outside of Nigeria. Like you're able to see from that bird's eye perspective. Nigeria's problem is not, it's very convoluted. It's not it's not one thing or the other. It's a mix of everything. So while you're trying to fix generation, you have distribution and transmission a problem. And we don't even have as much a generation problem as we have a distribution. So when you continue to increase the generation, so even if we have more renewable energy penetration in the system, it's not necessarily going to translate to having more electricity for you and I or for businesses.
Okay.
So, what did you say?
I totally agree with you. I'm just
Yeah.
what you're saying.
So, my research is trying to look at it holistically. Also, look at the kind of market design because sometimes you have all these technical solutions, but the framework of the market cannot is not in tandem with your technical solution. So you can say that okay, we need X megawatts of solar in this part of the country. We can have this capacity of wind across, the north. The hydro is working. We have some gas plants as a medium. We have some gas plants as well as sort of peakers to the energy system. But at the end of the day, what kind of market design? How do you move from who is generating to who is transmitting to who is buying? Are we operating a capacity market? Are we operating an energy only market? Some of those, some of those, some of those, some of those, what would I call them? Structures also need to be considered when we're looking at the energy system. I also wanted to talk on the idea of deregulation. So we see that deregulation has worked efficiently in the telecommunications sector. The average person in Nigeria has even more than has access to a telecommunication network. But you don't see that in the energy sector. And what I have learned is that deregulation is not necessarily lack of or removal of regulation. It's more about re-regulation. So we have removed government's hand, but we're going to regulate it in a different way. But Nigeria, what I see is we're making progress. First of all, with the unbundling that happened, but also um, TCN, the Transmission Company of Nigeria, I think they're sort of separating them, and we have a system operator now. One will focus more on operational planning, and the other would focus more on the transmission in terms of the technical systems. So I think that is a step in the right direction. Another area is financing, which is where I'm also trying to situate my research. You can have all these fine, solutions. We know that we want to do this, but there's no money to do it. And I'm doing a capacity expansion
Mm.
model that would show the optimal energy mix that Nigeria requires to continue to meet electricity demand while also decarbonizing. But a lot of models that exist typically assume that it's a perfect capital market, but the kind of leverage that a Nigerian company has is different from that which a country like Spain would have. I don't know if you get where I'm coming from. Like the cost of financing is not in is very expensive. Like
Okay.
exchange rates risk and all of that. So it makes it more expensive to finance renewable energy technology, which also slows down how fast we can adopt renewable solutions. But so I'm looking at how, cost of capital either slows down or like how it affects that mix of what would make the best solution for Nigeria and to come up with policies that can drive that in a
Okay.
nutshell.
Okay. So away from policies and government, let's come back to an
Yeah.
average Nigerian student. Like you're a student yourself, a senior student for that matter. So how would you advise that a student in Nigeria that wants to be globally relevant, you want to get global opportunities and open up yourself to possibilities beyond the shores of your country. So, how would you advise for that kind of individual to prepare for that global opportunity?
Um, I think You need to read. And I find that a lot of Nigerians, we don't read. And I don't know, the system sort of just sucks you in. You barely have time. I also wasn't reading back home. Although I was fortunate, like the kind of jobs that I had, I was constantly reading, exposed to what do you call it? To developments that were happening around the world, Nigeria. But you need to read. You need to put in that extra effort. If you want to see results, you have to be willing to put in the work. You're not reading to pass an exam. You're not reading to make anyone happy. You're reading to build your mind. You're reading to grow as a person. You're also reading to be able to contribute to discussions. So I would say if you're trying to build a global mindset, you need to be able to read wide things that don't interest you. I mean, I couldn't talk this much around energy or talk about energy policies,
Mm.
renewable energy, which was really scary for me when I started my program.
You studied
But
economics. Your first degree was economics. Your
yeah,
second
it was,
degree was international business with a mix of MBA. Has absolutely nothing to do with energy, right?
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. But I mean, through work, I had a good like foundational knowledge of how the energy system works, the market and whatnot. But through the course of my first year, I have learned a lot of technical things. I can sit down and speak with engineers. But back to reading, there's an intrinsic value that, being knowledgeable adds to you. And I would say you need to read. You also need to network. It's important to reach out to people. Hey, let's have a conversation. Let's chat about this. You see someone on LinkedIn post something, you write to them, you contribute to that discussion. Slowly, you're starting to also empower yourself to be someone who thinks logically and critically. You can contribute to discussions. What else? I would say also it's like even it doesn't have to be such a serious or formal meeting. Oh, Shay, this is happening, or we're hanging out, even if we're drinking, whatever you're doing, like just always make sure that there's some form of value that your day-to-day conversations, how you spend your time is adding to you. I will talk about social media. I will talk about AI. Social media is amazing. Social media is here to stay. AI is here to stay. But I would say that with the way that a lot of us are using social media and AI,
Mm.
we are not growing as intended to be. And no amount of prayer is going to reverse that impact. We need to be more intentional about what we're taking in. It's not always going to be about jokes and just laugh and there's time to have a good time, but there's time to also engage in things that shape our lives. Whether it's politics, you might not like politics, you might not like who is in government, you might have given up on your country, but it is important that you are still part of the discussions that are happening because whether you like it or not, these things are going to shape your future. So when I came to Canada, I was following the news, I kept abreast of things that were happening. And I remember my sister was like, wow, even I am who is here, I don't know so much about what you know. Why don't you have other things to do? And I couldn't wrap my head around it. Like, I live here. Whatever happens affects me. So I have to be knowledgeable. So I sit down, I follow the news. Where I don't understand, I reach out to my friends who are Canadians. Hey, especially during the elections and the Canadian political system is extremely complex for someone who hasn't been here for so long. I will sit down with my classmates, talk about this, then just hear how they think, and that's how I learn by speaking to people. Um, yeah, so developing a global mindset, you really need to put in the work. You need to expose yourself. People underestimate the importance of traveling. Traveling is important. Traveling is not just about going to the mall, going to shop. No, traveling is a learning adventure. You learn so much observing even nature, it, even just seeing how other people do certain things, how they cook, what they eat, the kind of culture they have, the educational system, how do the young people in that environment think? These things shape you. When you go back to Nigeria, you are at an advantage over someone who hasn't had that experience, who so, for instance, you have seen more to be able to start a business, to innovate, to think of a solution because you have seen it work somewhere else compared to someone who has never had that experience. So, travel, we must think about travel beyond, oh, I am at this beach, I'm at this restaurant, I need to post this, for people to see that I'm doing well, there's for me, that's how I see travel. But I guess we can agree to disagree. But yeah.
Differently. Okay, so now there is a Nigerian somewhere in Oshobo or in Kutuwenji that doesn't even have an international passport. There is this argument, I don't know whether you are privy to it, about nepos and lapos. It's from the word nepotism.
Okay.
In English, it means that you get opportunities, you give opportunities to people who are your family members. So the president appoints his son as special advisor, right? He could have gotten that opportunity because he didn't get opportunity because of his technical capacity. He got
Yeah.
it because of relationship. So that argument has been on for a while. And LAPO, as they defined it, is living without access, privilege, and opportunity, or life without access, privilege, and opportunity. Just a way to define poor people, people that came from non-privileged background. From what you said, obviously, you schooled in the US, you schooled in Brazil, you schooled in different parts of the world. And just before you left Nigeria, you're working with an embassy, right? It's not beans. Some people don't have that sort of opportunity. And the truth is, 90% of our youths are in that bracket right now. No opportunity, no good family background, and all of that. And you want to present a talk to them, or you want to encourage them to pursue global opportunities. And you've said one of the ways to pursue global opportunities is to travel. Right? I don't even have a passport to start with. Where will I start from? What are the other ways that you can still develop a global mindset, right? And not feel stuck?
I think that's really important because, yeah, you at the end of the day, we can preach to ourselves, but we also need to be considerate that not everyone has, the kind of privileges or the background. To say that I don't have my own challenges and limitations, I don't think I grew up with a silver spoon, but yeah.
A lot of people argue.
Oh well, we can we can agree to disagree. Anyways, talking about, you said Napo and Lapo. I get the explanation, but what was the word? Napo? Nepo and Lapo.
And laptop, yeah.
So in life, there would always be people who have a natural advantage over you. So whether it is through their family background, through their cultural background, but there's always that law of advantage that comes into play in our lives. The onus on us is to not let our disadvantages be a setback.
Mm.
Travel is still important, regardless of your background or whatever. You can aspire. That's fine. And when I say travel, I don't mean you have to go to like Maldives or it has to be UK, it has to be Canada. Even within Nigeria, there's a lot of learning
Mm.
that you can absorb through traveling. At some point, I really wanted to travel to at least 2 states in each of the geopolitical zones. And I had this phase where I was so fascinated by the Southeast and I wanted to travel because I've never been in the Southeast. I wanted to go to the Southeast just to learn that to feel that entrepreneurial
Right.
energy. And
Mm.
I think then I was doing a project that involved the Aba market and something around creating energy solutions there. So it really piqued my interest, wanting to go and see and whatnot. But unfortunately, I couldn't because there was a lot of security risks around that time. There was also, while I was working with the Danish government, there was a project I was managing in South South. So I had to go to Bayelsa and go, to the remote areas. And it was humbling to see like youth energy. Like there's a lot of potential you see, there's a lot of opportunities you see. Some might be better positioned to capitalize on those things, some might not be. But even just learning that, there's a different way people live from the way you're used to, learning other people's culture is significant learning. It shapes your character as a person, it shapes how you adapt in situations. And all these learnings, it's not something that one professor will teach you in school. You learn it through life. And I apply these things in my job, even in how I contribute to ideas. All these things shape that. So when I talk about travel, there's the international, of course, but there's also local travel.
Okay.
Um, Also, my parents are Yoruba. I am Yoruba. I've spent most of my life in northern Nigeria. I speak the language, both languages. Already, I have a very diverse cultural um, exposure. So sometimes people see me and they're surprised that I'm Yoruba. Why? Because I don't know,
Because you grew up
but
you speak
possibly, even when I speak, they can say, "Oh, your accent doesn't sound Yoruba and whatnot." But it's also how the importance of immersing yourself or being open to other people's culture. I'm also very tolerant. I'm very liberal. Like our differences doesn't make it's not a stumbling block in my relationships.
mm,
So I learn a lot through being in being outside of my comfort space. And back to nepotism and life without access and not having privileges. Unfortunately, we're in times where you may not have those advantages, but you have to go for it. No one
mm,
is going to come and give you that advantage. You have to pursue it. And sometimes we're just really lazy. We don't want to do the extra effort. Sometimes we're so close to our breakthrough that if no, how will I phrase this? If only we knew how close we were to our breakthrough, we will
mm,
put in just a little more effort. But a lot of times we're just like, nah, no, like we give up, we self-doubt, which also is key. Is there something you want me to say more on this nepotism thing?
no, it's fine. I think you already sort of answered the question. There are things that if you were still in Nigeria, those things would have been possible.
Um, Absolutely, in a good way and in a bad way.
So,
Nigeria makes you resilient. Like sometimes, even in my discussions with non-Nigerian Africans here, the thinking you just Nigerians, there's a spirit around us that I don't know it.
mm,
Like it's hope laced and it's very glaring here, being surrounded by a lot of like non-Nigerian Africans. I can see that spirit. Um, there was a day my supervisor told me, I can't keep up with you. You're always doing something. You're always up to something. And in
mm,
my mind, I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is so normal. So I feel like we have that tenacity that comes natural to us. Nigeria can also be very noisy, very exhausting. I remember my life in Nigeria, it was constantly moving from one responsibility to another responsibility to another responsibility. And you realize like days come, days go, weeks come, weeks go. You're not you don't have that space to breathe. Like you can't take life slowly. You can't pause. You can't breathe, you can't think, you can't read. The thinking part was really, really challenging. And not to say that being in Nigeria doesn't make you think. No, but I had a very busy life back home. And yeah, you can say, oh, you can take vacations and whatnot. It's not everyone that can afford that kind of lifestyle. But being outside of Nigeria helps me to put certain things in perspectives. Maybe I have what I'm getting an award tomorrow. There's nothing I will do that would make the time for the award come sooner. I still have to wait and pass through the process of night to morning. But in Nigeria, almost everything is a possibility. If you want to speed up the night, you almost you almost can. But being able to go through life as a process, honestly, is priceless for me. Also, to choose what I give attention to. Nigeria, you almost don't. For me, when I almost felt like I didn't have control over my time. And here, I guess where I am. So usually when you travel to where, where you see a black person, typically maybe 70%, there's a 70% chance that that person is a Nigerian. But coming here, I realized that it was the opposite. Most people are Francophone Africans. So you'll find very few. I mean, I'm sure they are Nigerians, but at least the people that I meet and interact with, you find more like French speaking. We all look alike, we dress alike, but once they open their mouth, it's French you would hear, or you would hear their accent, which was humbling for me. Because usually I'm in an environment where, Nigerians are a majority and we have this sense of, we're the best. So being able to be, on the other side, I love it because I get to learn more about people from a place of humility, not from a place of, you know, the giants of Africa.
One last question is, what are the things, one or two, that you miss about home?
One, I miss my family for sure. But I would say also that I miss Nigeria has a very that energy that the same thing I thought I needed a break from. I also miss it, unfortunately. That sense of social support. Yeah.
Is there any other thing that you want to say that I probably missed out on, but you don't want me to end this video without you saying it?
I would say, well, for anyone who is listening and maybe cannot relate to me or feels like they fall into the Nepo Lapo, don't give up. There's always hope. Just keep doing, keep doing. Light would always shine. It's also important, like what you confess with your mouth, it needs to be intentional.
Mm.
I am not where I should be. However, when I look back 10, 15, 20 years back, or 20 years back, the things that I used to confess, I am materializing them today. So the me you're seeing today is the confessions of a little girl who was just trying to dream. So please keep growing, keep keep enriching yourself, keep being valuable, use social media, use AI intentionally and intelligently. Use it to advance yourself to where you want to see yourself. It's not a toy for play. Position yourself for opportunities because the world is so fast paced now. Opportunities literally perch on you and they're gone. It's not to put fear, but I see that sometimes, for instance, like might be just be one golden opportunity to invest in something and you don't have the money, you don't have access to capital. So through like save and invest money, especially as a woman in this time and age, you should have something that is keeping you busy. You should have money that silences bullshit. When I moved to my apartment, there was someone that I needed to come and fix something. We had agreed, and he would when it was time to do it, he would send me stinker messages. I'm just doing this, I'm just helping you. And I was so upset. So I just went on Kijiji, an application where you find people to do certain services like TaskRabbit. And I paid for the service and they came and fixed it. And that what that lesson taught me was always make sure you're never in a position where you're so desperate that you cannot call off some people's bullshit. That was my lesson. And I have a lot of lessons. Like for me, everything that happens in my life, I think through like a lesson around it. I'm happy to share one more lesson if you have the
Please,
time. Okay,
please.
so the other day I started running and I was walking past the canal. And I thought to myself, that same canal, the Rideau Canal, during the winter, because we had an extreme winter. During the winter, it was a skating rink, and you would see people using it as means of transportation and for pleasure. But now it's the summer. It's all melted, and you see the people now use it for kayaking. The same location, different purpose. And it started to tell me about understanding the seasons that you're in and ensuring that with each season, you're using it to to your own benefit. And there has to be value that you have put in yourself to also realize and use or take advantage of those seasons for you to know that, okay, when you put a kayak on water, you need to paddle, to move. It takes intuition, it takes knowledge, it takes innovation. So you need to position yourself for each season that you are in. And also I started to also think, how do you even know what season you are in? What are the features that make my winter season? I mean, for us, when it's winter, people dress differently. We wear boots, we wear winter coats, whatever. But in our day-to-day lives, how do I know what season I'm in? What are the features to look out for? And that all of this just for me, just running along the river. And yeah.
That's revelatory. Thank you, Pastor Flo. That is,
No, you make me talk too much, Shay.
thank you.